Hi, my name is Alvi, also known as Alvi Dev, or Scary, Scary Monster, Scary Productions, Scary Dev, and I wanted to make this vlog basically to recap what I learned, what is going on this past week, because I joined a Game Jam. This Game Jam is Shroom Jam 2025. I did join Shroom Jam 2024, and long story short, it didn't make something amazing. Turns out we found out way too late that it started. Me and Carmine, a friend that I made it with. And so felt kind of like a technical experiment of what I could do with particles. And even then, it wasn't very great at that. Garth did a great job with the music. Carmine did a great job with the assets. I didn't do a great job with the game itself. But, given the little I knew about Godot, I was like, all right, you know what, I did it. So we joined this year's Shroom Jam again. Way more prepared for the actual time frame of the jam. Yeah, I think I'm way more proud of what we did this year. What is the theme that was going on in Shroom Jam? So the theme was retro TV. Think CRTs, tube TVs, retro, classic, nostalgia, VHS tapes, etc., antenna, cable, which is pretty fun. With this theme, what immediately came to my mind is my philosophy going into game jams is that while it's very easy to fulfill a theme aesthetically sometimes, it's never as easy, I think, or almost never as easy to fulfill that aesthetic mechanics wise. So think if I'm telling you, I don't know, maybe the theme is clowns. Yes, you can make your character look like a clown, but what does it mean to play as a clown? And so maybe you could integrate, I don't know, but you pinch his nose and it sounds like, I don't know, things like that. You integrate the theme more is what I'm trying to say. So the idea immediately came to our mind where we would make kind of like this game within a game. We would make this TV where you would play a game and then you could zoom out and maybe crazy stuff would happen to the TV in the game. Maybe the static would get bad. Maybe it would turn off, change channel or something. And you would have to get sucked out of your game in order to fix it before you could keep playing the game. And this to me fulfills that ideology that I have in the way that it makes the mechanic way more in tune with the theme. It also adds in a really haptic and tactile way. You can immediately click the button, click the power off button, the TV turns off. Like that's, you click on something, it does something. I really like that in games. In a game that's a lot more complex, that's typically hard, but in a jam, it's like, hey, that's the easiest thing to do. I click a button and he does something? Wow. For the game within a game, what we decided to do was a Vampire Survivors for two reasons. First, I remember there being like a bunch of YouTubers were doing like, oh, Vampire Survivors in Godot challenge. Let's make Vampire Survivors in 5 minutes. And there's people who did that. They just typed it out and it came out. That was really funny. And I thought to myself, well, if there's a game that's just a bit more complex than a platformer that I could pump out quickly, I think it's that. So let's do that. And another reason is that Carmine worked on Vampire Survivors at like the first version, which I think is some crazy like backstory lore. And I think it's really funny to say, hey, you want to work on Vampire Survivors as a jam? And I remember him being like, you see how far I've fallen? I was in the original Vampire Survivors. Anyways, what I wanted to talk about was how did I make it? Like, I want to pick at my brain right now so that in the future I can look back and understand where I was standing at right now. So, for the Vampire Survivors part, I simply looked up on YouTube Godot Vampire Survivors clone. And this YouTuber, Brano Dev, had made an entire series of how to make a Vampire Survivors clone in Godot. This is a great series, by the way. It's a great tutorial with a few caveats, but the methodology is great. You simply go into the tutorial and he's giving you the information, sort of the functional information, you're following along, and he's telling you, hey, in order to do this is the code that you need, so put it in. And then at the end of the video, he would section off a little piece of the video to actually explain the theory behind everything. He would go line by line, change by change, and explain in detail what was going on. The caveats that I mentioned were mostly that there were some things about the tutorial that I think weren't the greatest coding. There's some things that I thought, well, this could have been made in a different way, made more efficient, more readable, etc. But that's something I want to get into later. That it's something that I knew as a concept, but like I really learned in practice is that sometimes you really do need to learn the dumbest way to do something complex before you start doing it in smart ways. And that goes especially in game dev, and that goes even more so in a game jam. You don't have time to make like really complex systems, really scalable. It doesn't matter if something's scalable in a jam, especially since, you're not going to be maintaining it for much longer than after the jam ends. Next thing on the table is the shader, the CRT shader. Honestly, I still haven't learned shaders. I feel like they're super important. But for the moment, I simply used one by No Phaser on the Godot asset library. Try to credit them as well. Like I credit everyone on the itch site. The shader was super useful. Basically, before I go into it later, simply adding the shader, it's such a change in the vibe of the game. It's such a change in the feeling. You go from 20% of the way there, even if you've done all the sprite work and all the visuals and all the animations. You go from like 20% of the vibe with shaders and music. That's like 80% of the vibe. That's so important. I do think in the end, it's more like a theoretical thing, but I do think if you're going to focus on one thing in a game dev, I feel like visuals are definitely the most important thing, because in the end, people are going to see screenshots and videos, and that's a first impression. But in the actual game itself, oh my god, shaders and music are amazing. They go so far. I'll get into that later. Next, I recently bought Sprite. I'm not an artist myself. I've been trying to learn art, but Sprite was a tool that I've been wanting to get into for a while, and this was the perfect opportunity. And oh my god, Sprite is amazing. It's so fun. It's so easy. Any other app I've tried for pixel art is just super difficult, but Sprite makes it so easy, and it looks so good. Without even automate, like, it doesn't automate anything. It just gives you a ton of really useful tools like trimming, outlining, etc. It's so good. Obviously, at the end, Carmine was the art guy. So at the end, pretty much all the assets in the game were made by Carmine. It was just using these placeholders that I made in Sprite, which I'll get into later, that really catapulted me forward. The final one, similar to how I used Sprite to kind of like make placeholder assets while I was waiting for Carmine to, waiting to finalize the vision and for Carmine to work on those. I figured I could just make the audio myself. The Brano tutorial does include audio, but I was thinking, all right, the less assets I borrow, the better. And so I decided to just open Audacity and go like, bing, bong. For the different effects and ow and stuff like that. And it led to some really funny things. I think the game really benefits from that feeling. It gives it this little kind of more jovial vibe. It's pretty funny. I'm no voice actor. I'm definitely not going to be like, oh, that was the most amazing thing I've done. But compare that to like looking for a sound library, looking for the audio that you want. I feel like one of the topics that I want to get into is fast iteration. It helps immensely to have like a vibe of audio that you want without needing to go into an asset library or hire a musician, music engineer rather, sound engineer, sorry, and for them to actually do all the audio that you want before you settled on a vibe. I feel like just recording, if you haven't done it before, I highly recommend it. Just, if you have some character shooting a gun, just go, maybe pitch it up and down, stretch it, and you will immediately understand if that's the vibe that you want. Maybe you can pitch it down, pitch it forward. Maybe you go instead of etc. I'm no audio engineer. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying that it's a great way to go about iterating something quickly. So, in short, what did I learn? If I'm gonna itemize it, I learned Godot features. I'll get into those in a little bit. Wow, Godot's great. I learned about fast iteration. Don't get stuck on, hey, I'm waiting for this asset. Ooh, I'm waiting to learn this. Ooh, I'm waiting to read something. Ooh, I'm waiting for this feature. You need to get stuff done fast. You need like that stuff now. And that's obvious. Like anyone in game dev who's worked for half a day can tell you that. But it's way different to actually get it in your hands and understand the different techniques that you can do to minimize the fast iteration roadblocks. Like you really can do anything. You are so capable of so many things. I got motivational there, I'm sorry, but what I'm trying to say is that like the barrier between you and doing something is so small. You just need to understand where you're gonna put your foot after you jump the barrier. And some people say, hey, I want everything done before, like, once I jump the barrier, I want to land in like my feet on the ground. And sometimes it's like, well, maybe you gotta land your feet on the mud first. It's fine. You'll get to the ground eventually. Anyways, so fast iteration, failure does not matter in jams, just chip away. Basically the same idea. Just, if you have like 20 ideas going into a jam, going into a project even, and you kind of scope it out, you're looking at the project and you think, ooh, well, maybe these 20 ideas, maybe, I don't know, maybe 5 of them don't work, 5 of them can't be done, 5 of them are boring. Well, that's fine. You still got 5 ideas that are good, and you're not done coming up with ideas. You're your own guy. You're making your own ideas. You got your own idea factory right here. It's fine. So, just keep failing, keep iterating, keep doing, get feedback. Oh my God. It is so easy to just lock yourself in a bubble and, code away, just, insert feature. And then the moment you give it to someone else, everything breaks. We've all been there. If you made any piece of software, we've all been there. But it is so much more important for me to remind you of the power of that, which goes into my next point, organized workflows. Wow, I really had a bad workflow going into this game jam. Personally, I feel like I had a good workflow for myself. These past few months, I've been working on a project, this sort of gold miner demake clone-ish that I've been making on my own on Pico 8. The way I did that was try to make a game design document, and by game design document I mean, all right, what does the gameplay read like? Oh, sorry about that. What does the gameplay read like? And when I reread that, I basically formulated that into, all right, what does the game need? What functions, what screens, what items, what levels, etc. That's basically what I got for that. And I learned really well that, hey, it is so useful to just say, analyze the user story. Sorry, I'm an engineer. Analyze the user story, chop that up into pieces that you can bite. Straight up, super easy. Obviously, challenge comes in how do you chop that and how do you put that into words. But the more you work on projects like that, the more you learn from yourself, the more you know yourself. So, make projects. And yeah, I already mentioned shaders and music are 20% of the work. I know it's 20% of... I wrote it down as 20% of the work, but that's not really real. I feel like shaders and music are 20% of the volume of the project, if you want to put it like that. If we're looking at like file sizes, it's probably like 1%, but it represents a huge amount when it comes to the vibe, the feeling. I already said this. So anyways, moving on. So what did I learn from Godot, like the new features and stuff? So first of all, I learned about signals. What? Godot has signals? That's crazy. This is in reference to the fact that Godot signals are like the most primordial thing in Godot, the most like basic function, and on their own it did nothing. It just activated the signal. In the world scene, it also did nothing. In the main scene where I'm loading the world and the player, what it does is I catch that scene in my like TV main world scene, and I make it so that it spawns a rubber duck that is then used so that you can click them and regain health. Rubber ducks were part of the theme for the jam, by the way. It was TV and the curveball was ducks. As like, curveball theme. So, viewports, okay. Viewports were very confusing to me. I've seen them before, never really used them before, until now. And I remember, shout out to Gramps, who I talked to, who messaged me out of nowhere. He saw that I was in Godot. He was like, hey, what are you doing? And I'm like, please help me. And he sent me this talk from Rafael Pica from GodotCon 2023, and he was just talking about the ways that he, like, basically advocating for the use of viewport in more people. Like, if you haven't used it, hey, here's some examples that I did. It's great. And it's great. It's amazing. It fixed all of my issues. So one of the issues that I had is that, when I followed the tutorial, it used to like, the GUI layer on the screen. And of course, if you're going to import that into another scene, well, you're going to have trouble if you want things to cooperate and stuff like that. Viewport basically says, hey, I'm going to instantiate the scene, but I'm going to also instantiate like a little box where it exists. And that, it's kind of instantiates like its own little app version of the game. And you can add to it, you can modify it, but it's still going to stay in that little rectangle box, whatever you want it to be. And wow, that fixed all of my issues. It's so good. I'm gonna use that way more now. And that's simply one way to use it. You can use it to, like, if you want to like change the resolution or settings or overlays or whatever, you can make your whole game go into a viewport, and then suddenly you have so much flexibility to do anything with it without breaking the functionality with it. It's great. Next thing that I learned, tweens. Oh wow, Godot tweens. Very fun to use, very good. Basically, all that tweens are a way, well, the way I use them, I know they're more powerful than that, are a way to change variables in a way that animates them. So say you want you got a box here, you want it to go here, sorry, but you don't want to just like, pop up. You don't want it to like teleport. What you can do is tell a tween like, hey, the object is here. I want it to be here. Can you make it so that it, like goes there or eases in or goes super fast? Maybe also changes color while it's at it. Maybe also bounces up and down. Maybe also makes a sound when it's finished. Kind of a way to just like animate it, add different features to different visual elements. And it is great. I used it for animating the different logo transitions. I used to animate the thing that took me, like the singular feature that took me the longest after the jam. I'm making a post-jam patch. Not adding it in the voting period, that would be cheating. But I'm making it so that the TV, when you turn it on, this was a suggestion from someone. Let me check. From Mishtabin. Basically, it would, like the old CRT TVs, they would have like, the little scan line going through. And when you turn it off, it would basically like, squish into one horizontal scan line and then kind of go slower and disappear. Well, I didn't want to animate that in like Sprite. Like I felt like I didn't properly know the Sprite tools that would make that easy. And then I thought, oh hey, I can tween it. I could have like, a big rectangle that grows small, that shrinks down rather. The problem was that it stayed up there. But I could make it like at the same time shrink and go down so that it would be a horizontal line. And after that's finished, shrink down to the center and also grow like fainter until it disappears. That was a very fun thing to do. Tweens are great. I'm gonna use Godot tweens for the rest of my Godot years. Honestly, I added shaders to this list, but I really don't know shaders. I really don't know how to handle shaders. Every single time I wanted to add the CRT shader, I was like, oh man, please work. And one of the best ways that I found was intersecting it with viewport containers. Wow, viewport, it's coming back. It's so good. Anyways, animations are another thing that I learned. Basically just animating straight up like sprites. If you got a sprite sheet, if you got different like sprites going on, it is very much easier than I thought to add animations to a sprite. And I feel like it's one of those things where you don't really appreciate it until you can do it. Like animations in a complete project maybe sometimes don't add anything. That's a loaded statement. Let me retract that. Adding animations in a complete project can feel like a minor part of what you're adding. But when it's the first thing that you add, you really do add a ton of life. It really, I'm personally someone who maybe struggles a little bit when it's like, oh, hey, I want to make a prototype. I have a pill. The pill is going to float around, run around. I'm like, well, I'm not seeing the vision that I want to do. If I can like immediately iterate on it, damn, I can get like a whole vibe. Anyways, also importing things the correct way. There is a wrong way. There is a wrong way to import, for instance, sounds. If you want it to be music, you need it to be like, the looping. Even if you set it to loop in the project, sometimes it's not going to pay attention to you. Learned that the hard way because our current submission to the jam, I didn't import the music correctly. And so it only plays once when in my machine it autoplayed. So what happened? I needed to import the music file correctly. It's unfortunate, but it happens. Also importing sprite sheets correctly and make sure that, if you have a huge sprite sheet, just, chop it down. What else? Oh, I wanted to touch upon what made the tutorial kind of have like these caveats that I mentioned. And at its core, the thing with the tutorial was that it didn't apply the best practices in code. For a little bit there, it kind of peeved me. I was like, oh, this could have been an abstract class. Oh, this could have been a different source of ways to do it. Oh, this match statement could have been a little bit more programmatic, a little bit more logical to avoid this huge burger of code. Imagine a burger. What I mostly like, I knew this as a concept before. Like anyone, like I said before, anyone who's worked an hour in game dev will tell you that, hey, it really doesn't matter to do things in the most by the book correct way. You kind of need to like iterate. You kind of need to like do stuff, trust your gut sometimes, and get things going, because it is very easy to get stuck in analysis paralysis and overcomplicating yourself. So I think one of the funniest ones was like this huge match statement in the player, and I'm like, man, I really wish I could like just make this programmatic, kind of like improve the logic so it's the lawless code. And then I thought to myself, well, this is kind of like the way you ensure that you're getting exactly what you want as soon as you think of it, you know? Like, it was a huge switch statement for the different upgrades you can get throughout the levels. So say if you obtain the level 2 upgrade for the ice spear, no, it's a cursor, we changed it to a cursor. It would check for each match statement until it got to the ice spear 2, and then it would run those commands, which are to increase the level and damage of the ice spear. I was like, this isn't great. And then I thought about it and I'm like, might not be great, but it's doing exactly what I'm telling it to. That's great. So again, shout outs to Brando and shout outs to the whole community in general, because this is kind of like the general sentiment. Like, yes, there are better code principles, but there's already a whole field for that called computer science, computer engineering, software engineering, I guess. What we're trying to do here is not industry grade code. We're trying to make industry grade games. So yeah, what else can I add? Game design talking points. So I already mentioned that actually. I was going to talk about where the ideas come from, those 5 minutes of Vampire Survivors challenges. Did mention that. Implemented the theme visually and mechanically. Already did that. What was left on the table? Man, one of the things that really hurt is that I think the mechanic that I was most excited to add was adding a magnet to the game and making it so that you could drag it around the screen. And if you ever did have those CRT TVs, you'd know how like that would mess with the colors in the screen. You would suddenly see like this kind of black hole sometimes form, and it would leave the colors all messed up. They had to like press a button to degauss it. But I was thinking like, oh, what if you use the magnet to degauss the TV when it's going on? Sadly, I was struggling a lot with buttons and dragging, and especially the shaders. I didn't want to get into modifying the shader provided, so I was like, well, that one's on the chopping block. And unfortunately, it made the game less exciting than I thought it would be. That's a pain point for the event. And also design-wise, this one's really interesting because deciding when something is an inconvenience or seamless, being completely honest, the state of the build that the voters got isn't great. It's got a ton of bugs. It's unfortunate, but the one thing that I am proud of is adding these sort of like intermissions, inconveniences, like, oh, whoops, at 30 seconds your TV's turned off, so you gotta zoom out, click on the on button, back to the action. It is supposed to be disruptive. I would have kind of loved to pause the game, but there was a lot of bugs with pausing the game. There was this one hilarious one, which I think I'm kind of sad because I don't think I'll ever make a funnier bug ever. So remember when I said that every single sound effect was my voice? I added a sound bit that said game over, whenever you lost. The tutorial originally makes it so that when you lose or you level up, the game pauses. However, since I was integrating this game into another metagame, I disabled these pauses in order to make the game seamless, in order to make the game more exciting. And so what ended up happening was that, yes, you could still die, but the dying check would happen over and over and over again. And so what that meant was that the game over audio would play over and over and over again. And if you can picture in your mind, I guess, imagine me saying game over, like the first syllable over and over and over, you may find a funny pattern. I think I'll post the video here. Game. Couldn't keep that in for the submission, like, as much as it was funny. Didn't want to be like, anyone to misunderstand it. I think it was hilarious. My girlfriend couldn't stop laughing at it when I showed her. But yeah, so back to pausing the game. We made it so that it didn't pause the game, and I think that was more exciting. And so, having to zoom out, do something. I am a little bit disappointed at the low variety, but again, that just comes out to like dev time and me not knowing shaders, whoopsie. But yeah, one thing that I want to get into is the feedback. Jams are a great opportunity for you to not only get feedback but give feedback, and it's something that I had, I dove my nose so far in the dirt that honestly I was like, especially after last year, I was like, whatever. I'm just gonna I'm setting the game. I'm going to sleep, man. I'm not caring too much. A few days later, Carmine told me, he's like, hey man, you should respond to the comments we got. I'm like, what? We got comments? And everyone's being super kind. Everyone's being super nice. Even though the game is in the state that it is, which isn't amazing, everyone's still appreciating what is there. They're like, hey, this is a great idea. Hey, I like this mechanic. Hey, I like this look. Hey, it's pretty impressive that you managed to add an entire game of Vampire Survivors clone on top of making a submission that's also unique and etc, etc. That was great, honestly. Like, I'm not, how do I say this? It was a great feeling, and I know why it's great, because tell me that I did a good thing. And so it's very easy to get lost in the sauce and be like, hey, I'm doing this for the attention. I mean, look at me, I'm doing a vlog right now. I'm honestly doing it more for myself, but like, whatever. If it was for yourself, don't worry, upload it to YouTube. So I think one of the best things to come out of this game jam is that I did get feedback, and it was positive. I think it's great to have positive feedback. We all need kind of a little bit of that positive reaffirmation. It's easy to fall in the hole of, oh, you gotta just, stick your nose in the dirt. Like I said, stick your head in the dirt. Don't care about anything. Don't tell anyone anything. Just be stoic, whatever. And, you finish your project on your own because you're the best and you don't need anything. Hey, it's great to have people helping you, people, again, testing stuff, telling you stuff, whatever. It's great. And I think one of the other lessons that I wanted to get into, this is a little bit more personal, but I feel like as a game dev, it's something that maybe I share with more than just one person. And it's that what I really want to talk about is how hard it is for you to take yourself seriously if your environment doesn't take you seriously. And of course, it's not impossible. I feel like one of the main things that makes us humans and all this work of will and power and strength that we are as people is that we can ignore our negative environment and still be a positive person. And I feel like that's one of the best things. But it also comes down to choosing the right environment to be a positive person, kind of getting yourself out there, getting yourself out of the cycles of someone judging you, cycles of someone being like, game dev, all right, man, where's your job? And don't get me wrong, I know the trappings of the market of game dev, of the industry. It is like 90 times more likely for you to end up as someone who releases a project, makes $20 if you had a good run, and then just doesn't continue on it. But I still think it's this is what I want to do. I had so much fun making this game. I had so much fun learning, so much fun applying my knowledge and putting things together. I laughed, I cried. I didn't cry actually at this game jam. That would be too much, especially because it lasted 7 days. I feel like with 7 days, one of the biggest benefits is that you can sleep. Please sleep. I laughed, I cried, laughed. I had so much fun. I had a smile on my face adding new features. I had a frown on my face fixing bugs because I was like, how the hell does that happen? Balancing stuff out, thinking of design. That was so fun. That was so good. I want to do it again. Not yet, though. I kind of want to rest for a little bit. A little bit being like a week or two. I don't know. Oh, but another thing with the 7th Game Jam, I work a job. Which is a benefit that unfortunately not all of us can say. Not all of us who want to say can't say it, rather. But what that also means is that, all right, I can't put 16 hours of my life, even 8 hours. I can't put that much because I do have to focus on, getting my stuff together, food, workout, sleeping properly, recreating. It's very important to have your time for recreation, entertainment, going out with friends. This just turned into a ramble, didn't it? Still very important to go out. Still very important to do things. Get your mind out there. It's also extremely easy to just stay at home and do nothing. And once again, bury your head in the sand. It is so easy, so tempting. The little demon that was in my head when I was a teenager telling me going out sucks. Don't go out. Yeah, the little demon came back a little bit when I finished the game jam, and I was like, oh man, I had so much fun at home. I have so much fun making stuff in my computer, participating in my computer, making strides towards my life goal, which is to be a game dev. But yeah, sometimes I get bit by this bug that tells me like, ooh, going out, maybe not. And of course, I don't think the industry is another thing, but I don't think people would like take any artist seriously. Like, you know, if that's just kind of how our current society is. And I just feel like it's not great. I feel like we could do better. I feel like we should do better. The industry, folks, oh man, you could spend 8 hours a day for years on your game, totaling thousands of years, thousands of hours, and you're just one more of those thousands of games coming out that same day. And I don't know, maybe Oblivion remaster Shadow drop the same day. Whoops. And it's just like so much luck in this industry. All this to say is that people don't want to take themselves seriously. I think it's messed up that our culture or society doesn't allow us to take ourselves seriously. It really should be this us all working together to fulfill what we want to do. I was just watching this video about this guy being like, hey, it changed my life to make this, to make even one small project that nobody played. It changed my life because maybe understand games and the concept of art and the concept of, like, you know, art forms and expressing yourself. And that's amazing. I feel like that's exactly how I feel. And it's just so sad that we don't allow ourselves to see it in other people. I got so far off track. Like, I'm looking at the vlog kind of like bullet point list that I made. I am so far off. Anyways, I feel like I should close this out. So, what do I learn and what am I taking for the next time that I make a project? Workflows. Learn how to communicate what I need. Oh my god, I really need to work on that. It is so hard. Well, obviously you don't know how to communicate what you need when you don't yet know what you need. Of course, now I know way more than I did going into the project, so that's nice. Obviously, technology. Learn a bunch of technology. Learn a bunch of Godot. Learn a bunch of Sprite. Oh my god, I'm fiending to make something visual. It's so fun. And fiending to make something audio too, using my voice. I do want to have it in, like, you know, in for the record. I was basing myself on, there was a Half-Life 2 mod that released a while ago called Half-Life 2, but the sound effects are my voice, I think it was called. It was basically the same idea. Every single sound effect that wasn't a voice, I think even UI elements, were replaced by his voice. So, you know, you would shoot and you would go pew 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 pew. Crossbow would be like, very fun. It was very good. I like it is burned and engraved into my head that when you pick up the battery, the guy in the voice goes, Duracell. Funniest thing I had ever heard in my life at that point. I laughed for an entire day. I was like, that is so funny. This is the best thing ever. It feels kind of like full circle for me to have one of my first projects integrate that. And I might keep doing that. Like, I feel like it's very effective for fast iteration, for getting a feel of what sounds you want. Yeah, like, obviously it's so much easier to just tell a sound designer, hey, design the sound. And, you know, it's like, here's all the work. Think of something, you're the designer. But if you're going to be someone who's more in a directorial position, if you want your vision to kind of, like, you know, get more of a consistent form, I feel like you should put yourself out there more. You don't need to do everything perfectly. I don't think anything is perfect, but the more of yourself that you put into your project, the more of your vision that is reflected. That is crazy. Why am I suddenly being a, like, philosopher for the obvious? Anyways, yeah, what else am I taking home? There's so much for me to learn, but I feel like it's just constantly about, like, breaking these barriers in my head. Constantly, I would just open Godot and get, like, overwhelmed. That's a reason why I really like Pico 8 for a while, because you open Pico 8, there's nothing. There's a sprite editor, sprite sheet editor, audio maker, and kind of like sound form music creator. But the code gives you nothing. There's functions, obviously, but, like, no, nothing. You got to do everything on your own. And that was very satisfying for me to work on a couple of projects on. But it is just, like, obviously, coming back to Godot after that, it made me, like, expand. It's kind of like, you know, taking the weights off. You know, suddenly I'm like, oh man, it would be really nice to have a way to detect collision, Boom, there it is on enter, emit signals. Oh, it would be nice to have some sort of animation for the text like I did for my gold miner. I gotta publish that project sometime, even if it's unfinished. I really don't want to finish the. I've got everything finished for it. The only thing I don't have finished is making sure that, so there's a shop between levels, making sure that that actually works. I really don't feel like it. So I might just publish it without that. But I'm thinking immediately, oh my god, in Godot, I can make that immediately. It's so much easier. And yeah, it's just really fun to be a game dev, man. Like, it's just so, I wish I could do this for so much longer than I do. I know the saying, make your hobby your job and you'll never work a day in your life. I know that's kind of a fallacy in general. And I know if I ever do end up game deving, I'm gonna like, get my job, finish my day job, and like, each day, and be like, I don't want to touch games ever again. But even then, I would feel so much more satisfied and happy about it than I do working my other. So I stopped that recording before actually giving like my final thoughts and like my send off. I just wanted to give a shout out to Carmine for working with me. Thank you so much. Great sprite work as always. Shout outs to Gramps, of course, for helping me out with researching the different things I need to do and the different bugs that I had. Oh man, I wanted to turn my hair out with some things, and he was just like, "Oh, it's like this," and I'm like, "Oh, you're right." Sometimes it wasn't even like Godot knowledge. He was just looking at the code and was like, "Did you realize that you're loading this before that?" And I'm like, "Oh." Of course, the different people who contributed. Not Jam for making the music, great stuff. The CRT shader by No Facer, the tutorial by Brano. What a great tutorial, man. Shout out to my girlfriend for helping me and supporting me through this. She's great. She's amazing. I love her. And shout out to you for watching this. This is not gonna be. I'm not uploading an hour of this. I'm gonna edit it down so much. And yeah, shout out to my friends for keeping me sane, I guess. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next blog, maybe. Bye.